Welcome back. I'm Richard Hasnout, and I'm your host for the Wisdom Inspired Life podcast and this YouTube channel. Well, this begins and is part of a very special series, and this is a series where I have the opportunity to interview Jose Stevens, who has the Power Paths seminars and School of Shamanism, all the information that you see on the screen here. And these are going to be a series of conversations that I had with him that I think will be quite illuminating. And to an extent, they will give you an introduction to a topic, and you may or may not want to learn more. But if you want to learn more, Jose Stevens has a tremendous set of capabilities and offerings that can do exactly that for you. And you see the information on the screen where you can call the office or email Jose in Santa Fe, New Mexico. So with that said, let's get into the current topic. Well, welcome back. This is a fun series of conversations with Jose Stevens, a uniquely wonderful human being on planet Earth that we have here today as a resource. And when I first had the idea of having him part of this, the inspiration was immediate and affirmatory, kind of like inspiration, yes, sort of thing. And so we're covering a number of interesting topics. And today we're going to be talking about essence and ego. And least you be entirely clear about what those two words mean. Jose is going to make sure that we have a very clear understanding of what each is and the interplay that they have and their importance. So let me turn the microphone over to you.
Okay. The thing I think would be helpful to start with is different words that we could use to describe essence and ego. Over the centuries, people have referred to essence as as a soul, or a core self, or the source self, or there's a variety of different ways to allude to it. I like the word essence because essence suggests the what makes a person really unique and who they are at the most basic level. And it's also doesn't push people off into different religion areas and that sort of thing. We're kind of more neutral.
If I can, because I use that word, and one of the ways that I use essence, and I like the distinction that you just made, is I talk to people about the essence of who we really are. I mean, it's kind of like, and knowing that the essence, and I love that word, the essence of who we really are, can turn a light bulb on for you sometimes.
Yeah, and another quality of it is that when we say essence, we're usually referring to something that's absolutely true. There's nothing false about essence. Essence is just the truth of us, who we really are.
Yeah.
And then there's what we refer to as ego. Now, that word is a little bit confusing because we have the Buddhist notion of ego, and we also have Western psychology notion of ego. And, psychologists talk about ego strength and, that talk about ego as more of a structure in the personality that's essential. And I believe that it actually is. You need an ego to get around this world. But from a Buddhist sense, it's also something that's some problematic. And there's one tradition that calls it the false personality.
Mm-hmm.
So it's something false about it. It's a cover, it's a camouflage for essence. It's like the mask we're wearing or the costume. There's something fundamentally false about it.
Yeah, and let me just talk to that, because Yogananda talks about the self, uppercase S, and the self, lowercase s.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah. The small self.
Yeah.
As opposed to the big self,
Yeah.
And so these are all ways that are talked about it in different traditions.
Yeah.
And they all are trying to get to the same thing. So I believe that, okay, so essence, when we say essence, when I say essence, I mean the essence of a person's beingness, which doesn't require that they have a body.
Mm-hmm.
It's something even more fundamental. It's even behind having a physical body. They don't even need a physical body to be an essence.
Mm-hmm.
It's like they're pure energy, pure being. Okay.
Yep.
And
Yep.
then so we adopt these bodies so that we can run around on this planet, because one of the rules of the game on this planet is you have to have a body. so you get one.
Yeah.
You're born into one, and you grow it, and now you have a chess piece that you can play on the board.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And the body has a personality. It has a kind of identity that is conditioned. And this is all talked about in Western psychology. You're conditioned, you're programmed by your parents and by the society that you grow up in and your culture. And these are all ways of indoctrinating your body personality so that it has an identity. And it says, well, I'm an Italian, I'm a Japanese, I'm an American, I'm a Canadian, a Mexican. And that means certain things.
Mm-hmm.
We expect a Mexican to act differently from a Japanese person. And,
Mm-hmm.
we develop expectations about these things, but the essence is behind all of that. It's not Japanese. It's not, British. It's not whatever. It's just what it is, pure being. And so these are our chess pieces, and it requires having a body which has a personality, which is the chess piece that allows us to play this game called life. You have to have some boundaries. We call them boundaries in psychology. The ability to say yes or no. This is my no point. No, I don't want to do that. That's all related to the personality, all related to the ego. So, it seems that we have to develop an identity to be sane. We don't want to be psychotic. We don't want to be, absent of a personality where you can't get around this world without one. So you need one. And this serves us as we grow up. And then it seems that the personality or the ego can become so strong that it then prevents the expression of the essence. Now the ego or the personality says, I know who I am. I'm in charge here, and I'm going to make whatever decisions I want to make, and there is no essence. It's just me. Yeah. And then we start to make bad judgments. We start to get into trouble. You know how it goes. So there's a way that the ego then has to be softened. That identity has to be softened some to allow the essence to come through and cooperate, to work in tandem with the ego, so that they both are cooperating in a partnership. And that's, I think, what we call a mature human being, or a evolved human being, that they were able to do that. And there are some traditions that talk about destruction of the ego. The Buddhists talk about that you kill off the ego and you become pure essence and all that. Ultimately, I don't know, because that hasn't happened to me, but ultimately, I suppose that can happen.
Yeah.
There's just people that experience a kind of a satori or enlightenment or something where they have no ego anymore. But the vast majority of people who are pretty aware and pretty enlightened people, they still have a personality. It's kind of required. So I think it's always there in some fashion or form as part of the body expression. Like even somebody who's highly evolved might say, chocolate or vanilla? I'll have some chocolate ice cream, please, because there's a preference, and that preference is not of essence. It's an ego thing, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
there's still a little preference there. So
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
some, it's mild, but it's there.
Yeah.
And so essence seems to be infinitely patient, because the essence is not really in time. Since it doesn't really need the body,
Yeah.
it doesn't participate in time the same way as the ego participates in time. Now, the ego is associated with the body, and we know that the body is temporary, that it's only going to live so long. And so the ego always knows that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's always fearful
Yep.
of losing the body, because you lose the body, you lose that's the end of it too.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it will go through all kinds of efforts to deny death and to deny aging and to pretend like, no, I'm going to be here forever. And the shamans say that the greatest foolishness for a human being is to act as if they're going to live forever in this body.
Wow. Please don't do that to me. Yeah, it's a wonderfully entertaining and important topic. My relationship with ego is certainly from a personal standpoint, in a state of transition. And one of my strongest affirmations I do every morning is, I let go of my ego. Mm-hmm. Because for me, as my observational self through meditation and everything, it's the ego that jumps onto the center stage of meditation and says, Richard, you forgot to do this, put it on your list to make sure you get it done, and all this other sorts of stuff that needs to be done. Yeah. Preventing me from being, if you will, which is another interesting word for essence, just kind of like being. Yeah. So it's, I think you say, well, we all have it, and you've walked us through, like Soul Age in the previous one. The ego manifests itself in both functionally and dysfunctionally in very different ways at each of those levels. So all these things that you're talking about are very intimately connected. We're dealing with them, parsing them, and dealing with them in parts, but they're all part of this thing that we call our ego, or our humanness, if you will. Is interesting. So it's an interesting topic, and the reason I wanted to be able to talk it here is this is about the wisdom-inspired life world, and it's when you're opening up to wisdom, not just scientific knowledge and things of that nature, but starting to get to that essence of who you really are. The other thing that I was reminded of is when you talk about essence and ego, most of us can identify with, I am, and I have an ego. Essence, this thing, I understand the word and all that, but I'm not sure I really understand what it is. And it's kind of my relationship between Newtonian physics. I can look at it and say cause and effect, and all of that kind of works. But then I look at quantum mechanics and go, huh? What are you talking about, Einstein? And that's just a very, very different sort of world. I'm not sure those two things are appropriate in this one, in this particular way. But at a particular point, when you start waking up to wisdom, the what wisdom is, and wanting to live a life inspired by wisdom, the topic of essence and ego becomes far more relevant at that stage of your life than it may earlier.
It certainly does. The ego is never going to be wise. Yeah. It can be knowledgeable.
Yes, knowledge.
Very knowledgeable, but it's never going to be wise.
Right.
So wisdom is, you see wisdom in someone whose essence is expressing itself through their personality, through their ego. Yeah. And then they may be knowledgeable and wise. And that's a wonderful thing.
It is.
Or you can see somebody who's very knowledgeable and an expert in their field, and maybe very probably full of themselves. And that would be pretty much just ego.
Yeah. The other way I look at this is knowledge comes to us from our external world through our five senses.
Yeah.
And first of all, our five senses are accuracy is questionable, especially when we compare it to other species that are on the earth in some cases. But it comes in from the outside. Wisdom from the other perspective, it comes through our intuition, which I personally call the voice of our soul. It's deep, deep inner knowing.
Yeah.
And that deep inner knowing for me, when it's wisdom, when it's intuitive, is greater than my knowledge that 1 + 1 = 2.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I describe all of this.
And I noticed that you put your hands on your heart.
Yeah.
In the shamanic path, which is called the path with heart, wisdom is considered to be something that the heart holds.
Yes.
And, knowledge is something that the head holds.
Yeah. I had the great honor and privilege of studying with Sogyal Rinpoche. Rinpoche is right below the Dalai Lama in terms of the Buddhist hierarchy, and studied with him multiple times over years. And the heart essence and the compassion that is at a core of what Buddhism is just so inspiring and so expanding of our engagement with the world. So
Well, it certainly is a product of essence,
Yeah.
compassion,
Yeah.
forgiveness.
Yeah.
That way of being in the world is definitely of essence,
Yeah.
not so much ego.
Well, good. Very productive conversation. And for those of you that are listening to this channel, you also know that I have a series on caring and compassion, examples of human beings who are caring and compassionate, just to give you a sense of what that is and unexpected acts of kindness and all that sort of stuff. Jose, this is not only informative, but it's a lot of fun for me. So I really appreciate this. Thank you.
It is fun.
As you can see from that conversation with Jose Stevens, very illuminating. And Jose offers a set of skills that I've not seen with really any other single individual. It's the combination of this PhD in psychology, a shamanic practitioner, and a channel. He has the ability, if you were to have a conversation with him, to provide you more insights and help about your life in an incredibly short time than you can get from any other source that I'm aware of. So if you're interested, there's a lot of ways that you can learn more. So you see the information on the screen that can help you with that. Contact Jose as needed. Well, as usual, if you want to learn more about Wisdom Inspired Life, you can go to the mywisdominspiredlife.com website. There you can listen to the Wisdom Inspired Life podcast. We've got a very great player there, but you can also do it on Apple with their Apple Podcast and Google Play and Spotify and all the other places that you listen to podcasts. You can do that. You can also, on the website, learn about some of my books and a bio on my background. So, with that said, as you know, this is a journey and this is a fun journey, and I look forward to continuing this journey with you.